I don't know what's up with this. Let's see if we can manage. No, apparently not. Anyways, there's bubbles on the picture behind me. So, what do you all think is the biggest problem that we are facing in this world today? I think it's bubbles. It's the fact that we are all living in separate spaces where we are not really communicating with each other. We're living in our own bubbles. Some call it social constructs. Some call it filter bubbles. Some call it echo chambers. The problem is that we don't really communicate across these bubbles. How do I know that this is the biggest problem? I know it because I've lived it. In 2011, I was a student. I was living in the United Kingdom. And I was studying theater, of all things. And I went back to Norway, where I'm from, on summer vacation. Before I moved to the UK, I had been a part of the Labour Youth Party. It's a massive youth movement in Norway where we work on politics, really. And what I wanted to achieve through that was working for social justice of some sort. I wanted to make Norway a community in which everyone could thrive despite their background. In 2011, I went back to summer vacation, and I met with my friends from the Labour Youth Party at their summer camp. Every year, they throw this summer camp on a small island a bit outside of Oslo. I was 20 years old. I was, a pretty regular kid, and a lot of the people who were at the summer camp was there mostly to enjoy summer, like myself. Not because of the political workshops, but because of the parties, because of the football playing, because of, the fun having. I went out there on a Thursday afternoon and had the fun I had. And then Friday morning came. And I crawled out of my tent pretty late in the morning. It must have been afternoon, actually, because, evenings when you're 20. And as I did that, a man was driving his car towards Oslo, the city I grew up in. I grew up in Oslo. And this man was driving his car there. And in that car, he had a bomb that he had built himself. He drove into the government headquarters through these buildings behind me here. He parked his car and lit a fuse for his bomb. He left the car, went to another car, and drove off. And as he did that, the buildings blew up. All of Oslo blew up. The city I knew, the city I grew up in, was shattered. It was blown to pieces. We got to know this out on the island, and we saw pictures on our cell phones, and we realized that our home is not our home anymore. The place I grew up, the place I felt close to, was no longer the safe city it used to be. In the blast zone was the central library of Oslo, the place I spent most of my school days because I was a massive geek. And as we realized this, as we started calling our family and friends, trying to figure out who was okay and who was not, Anders Behring Breivik drove in his car towards us on the island. We gathered in the central place of the island, the camp area. And the camp area is sort of in a crater. The island is shaped a little bit like a volcano, like an old volcano, I like to imagine. And we gathered in the center of it. And there, we tried to figure out what was going on. And while we were doing that, we started hearing these popping sounds. We thought, maybe it's fireworks, maybe someone is having a party. It's summer vacation after all, it's a Friday afternoon, like people might like to have fun and not know what's going on in Oslo. And we were told by staff members at the island to kind of stay in the center of the island. And from the center of the island, you can obviously not see across the lake. And so we thought, maybe someone's shooting at the island, but that wouldn't be so dangerous because we are here in the center of the island where you can't see across, and so we are basically safe. And as we were told that, and more people came towards us, a man in dark clothes walked across the hill that goes around the island. And some people ran towards him. And the man in the dark clothes lifted his gun, and he shot the person who was running towards him straight down. that was the first time I saw anyone get killed, and my brain couldn't comprehend it. I couldn't understand what was actually happening in front of my eyes. I tried to rationalize it in all sorts of ways. I thought maybe it's an absurd military exercise that no one's told us about. Maybe it's some teenagers with paintball guns, like, having fun. I don't know. Like, I'm Norwegian. I live in the Norwegian countryside. I don't know guns. I still somehow got that this could be terribly dangerous. And so I turned around and ran into the woods along with my friends. And there, I called my parents, and they told me to stay safe and try to protect myself. We didn't know what was going on, neither did they. Everyone was confused. And then I walked down to the track that goes around the island. And there, I met a young boy. This is the island, by the way. The boy was 8 years old. He was just sitting next to the track. He had lost track of his father, who was a security guard on the island. And he was sort of panicking. I took the boy and decided to hide with him. We tried to figure out what we could do. And I stayed with him for most of the time. I stayed on top of him, covering his mouth, holding him down so he wouldn't run out and scream to reveal our hiding spot. And we stayed like that for the better part of an hour. And then the gunshots came closer to where we were. Every few seconds, we heard gunshots. And as the gunshots came closer to us, a group of people came running towards us. And in that group was another young boy. And I took the two boys and I ran with the group. And we ran along the track that goes around the island. And there we ran into a pile of dead bodies. A pile of friends of mine who had been executed. He had been shot in the head by Anders Behring Breivik. And in that pile was a cell phone that was ringing. And that was the first time I realized that someone outside of the island was trying to reach someone who was there, someone they loved, someone who would never be able to pick up the phone again. And I sort of blacked out from that. I managed somehow to keep track of the boys, and I ran with them. And we ended up on the southern tip of the island. And from there, we could see helicopters in the air, we could see many boats in the water, and we could see the longest line of blue flashing lights from police vehicles you could ever imagine. And we thought, hey, more than an hour has passed by now, we are finally safe. And then out of the woods behind us came a policeman. And the policeman told us that we have caught the bad guy, you're safe now. And as he told us that, the man who was wearing the police uniform lifted his gun and started shooting at our group. And I jumped straight in the water with the boys following me. With the bullets flying around me. I was wearing a massive woolen jumper and I sank. Thank God for that jumper. It must have saved my life. And I pulled the jumper off and I stood back up in the water and I looked back towards the island. And there I saw Anders Behring Breivik taking aim at my head. And for a moment I realized that this is my last moment. I'm going to die now. And at 20 I came to peace with that. And Breivik fired. And the bullet flew straight past my ear and he missed. And I fell over in the water again, and somehow I managed to swim around some rocks and hide underneath the trees that were hanging out of the water with the boys. Now, surviving an attack like this is extremely painful, it's extremely difficult. Here I am with the boys. And I spent a long time trying to piece together my life again. I felt shattered, like a puzzle that had to be pieced back together. And part of that was understanding what made Breivik Breivik. Breivik was a far-right extremist, a neo-Nazi. He wanted to kill us because he believed that the Labour Party was in favor of migration, of people coming to Europe from a diversity of backgrounds and living peacefully together. And yes, indeed, that was part of the reason why I was there. Because I believe that diversity is something we can all live with, something we can all thrive in. I started looking into Breivik's history, and Breivik comes from Oslo. He's similar to me in many ways. But he locked himself in a different bubble than me. He lived in a different world than me, a world that was driven by fear of people being different. And I think this fits very well with a definition of violent extremism that I've come to learn from Desmond Tutu, who defined violent extremism as the violent denial of diversity. And so the direct opposite of violent extremism is diversity. It's being able to live together and be different. And in order to make that happen, I started working on trying to understand how people become extremists. How do people become so afraid of extremism? No, of diversity, I mean. I went to places like Copenhagen, where here from the Central Library, you can see the site of the synagogue to which violent extremists went and killed a security guard. During that attack, he also went to a convention where people were talking about freedom of expression. And I think the library is a good symbol here, because libraries are temples of wisdom. People go there to learn about each other's, about different worldviews, about different ideas. People go there to grow themselves. And I think that's the key to what we have to do. We have to work to grow ourselves, to grow what I call strong positive identities, identities where I'm so comfortable being me that I'm not being threatened by you being you, where I'm so comfortable being me that we can live together and be extremely different, but still be friends. I've met more former extremists than anyone else. Here I am on Utøya Island on the very rocks where I almost get killed with Arno Michaelis, a former violent extremist, the founder of the largest neo-Nazi network in the world. And he keeps saying over and over again, hurt people hurt people. People who experience pain will cause other people pain. I think there's something profound in that. And it's a cycle we have to break. People who experience pain will cause other people pain, and the only way we can deal with that is by trying to break out of it, by trying to cause people happiness instead of causing them pain. And we do that by seeing each other as human beings. Arno left the neo-Nazi movement after he met someone he believed was vastly different from him, a black lady who saw him, who said to him, "You're better than this." He believed in Arno's humanity. By reaching out to each other, I think we can do this. I think this is a good picture that sort of symbolizes how the world can be seen. It's a picture from my native Norway of a mountain that's divided in two blocks. And one can see that extremists are now standing on each their block, speaking at each other, shouting at each other, but not listening to each other. And what we need to do in order to combat extremism is being this guy in the middle who's trying to climb up to the tops, trying to see what's going on there, trying to listen to the tops. Bridge the gap between them. We have seen failures of this, such as what's been going on in Charlottesville this fall, where vast amounts of neo-Nazis have been marching in the streets. We've also seen larger neo-Nazi marches in Scandinavia, in Sweden, and Norway than we have seen since the Second World War this year. I think it's time we stand up and that we bridge the gap. After Charlie Hebdo, we said, "Je suis Charlie." We meant that freedom of expression was the way to go. And I think that is right. I think we need freedom of expression. I think we need communication. We need to speak it to each other. And so I invite you all to break your bubbles, burst your bubbles, speak to someone who is vastly different from you, someone with a different worldview, someone with a different way of experiencing and seeing life. And by speaking to each other, by bridging the gaps between the extremes, we can fight extremism together. Thank you all very much.